Hello everyone and welcome back to another video, and this time we're going back to look at some more retro tech. And if you can't tell, we're going to be looking at the Currah Speech, which was sold for the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64 amongst other machines. I think also the Amstrad, but don't quote me on that. So what is this delightful machine? Well, it's a speech synthesizer, and it uses allophones. It allows the ZX Spectrum to use a full English vocabulary or any other vocabulary if you're prepared to spend the time typing quite abstract words into Spectrum Basic. It's a little black box, as you can see, plugs into the back of the Spectrum. There is no extension on the back for connecting a joystick or any other device. So if this is plugged into the Spectrum, it is the only device you can use. Ideally, you would use a sort of a multiple I/O device, so you can have this plugged in and the joystick connector as well. It's not really much good for a games player, even though it was marketed for games players. But I guess Currah was just being cheap. So the U-Speech, as it was marketed as, is about, I don't know, I'm not going to measure it, but it's fag packet size, if you're into that sort of thing. It has two leads. One is the aerial lead, or antenna for our American friends, and the other one is an audio jack, which actually plugs into the mic socket on the Spectrum, as I recall. And this allows the audio from the Spectrum, including the key presses, to be sent to your TV set. It really is a pain in the neck, but anyway. The key voice is controlled by the variable keys, so you can turn it off and on with using key equals 1, key equals 0s, and so on and so forth. And what that does basically is it repeats or speaks out the key presses as you type. So if you type beep on the keyboard, it will say the command beep, and so on and so forth. Most words seem to work rather well when you use this device. Certain words have issues, and it will encourage you to be slightly imaginative when spelling the words. So you wouldn't use full English, for example. You'd put extra O's, extra I's, or extra E's if you wanted to make a word sound more realistic, somewhat Dalek-like. But we're talking 1983 here, so don't expect miracles. As you can see from the chipset that is on this little PCB, this particular unit was made in, well, it's difficult to say when it was made, to be honest, but the General Instruments 8407 is 1981, and the 8408 is not really sure. Other than that, we have a ROM chip of some description with a serial number on it. It says 84-5, so I'm prepared to say it's mid-1984. It says Currah 770-08 copyright, so perhaps it's speech unit 770, not really sure. The reason I have this open is because the case is cracked and it fell open. I need to bond it back on. The little toggle switch there is to, I believe, make the audio more crisp when it's playing through the antenna socket. But like my Spectrum and many Spectrums, I've adapted mine to composite, so I'm quite unsure how this will work, but we shall see. I will have a play with it over the weekend and probably do a part 2 to this video. I just wanted to show the unit and read a little review. Now it's 25-30 years since I last used one of these. In fact, I broke my Spectrum as a kid with this device because I had a helicopter game which was called Sky something, not Sky Fox, Sky something, but it was a 3D helicopter game, and you had a futuristic helicopter spaceship thing, and you flew through a 3D generated landscape. And if I plug this in, I could get the audio through my TV, so I could turn it up. Without that plugged in, I couldn't. But unfortunately, if I had this plugged in, the game wouldn't load, it would crash. So what I used to do was load the game and then plug this in while it was powered on. And if I got it just right, the game would work and the audio would go through the TV, which I thought was very clever. But then I did it one day and my Spectrum blew up and needed a new power regulator. But that's another story. Right, issues and problems with this thing. Lots of software were written for this back in the day, as it was probably the generic speech audio device for the Spectrum. So most software that could be bothered would work quite happily with the speech, and some games were even adapted and modified and written to work with the speech unit, and some games spoke to you. Steve Davis's Snooker was one. I think Booty, which was written by Firebird, I believe, BT. If you loaded the game up without the Currah speech, you would get one version of the game. If it detected the speech unit when it loaded, you would get another version of the game. So I'll be quite interested to try that and see if that is correct, or if I'm being told a little lie. Now, issues with this unit. It won't work with all games on the Spectrum. In fact, some games just will not work with it because of the memory that's used in this machine. It uses something like 256 bytes or something of the upper RAM, which was often used for machine code in some games, and you can't have two programs operating in the same space, so it just won't work. Criticisms at the time, according to Your Sinclair and various other magazines, was that it was a simple and small unit that also acts as a sound amplifier, taking the Sinclair Spectrum sound and directing it to your television set. This allowed you to easily turn up volume on games and allowed you to have speech filling your room. It could be programmed from BASIC, but any machine code programs, i.e. games, the better written games, would probably crash if this adapter was present. It works with both 16K and 48K Sinclair Spectrums. But for now, I'm going to show some examples of the speech unit in use, some of the games being played with it fitted, and so let's see what difference it makes and if it's any good. Now, I have to say personally, I don't remember what it sounds like because I've completely forgotten, and it was probably 1984 the last time I used one, so it's quite a long time ago. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.
Delayed Ali from the SS. Please enter your selection. Change. Standby. Usually approaching saucer. Blocking saucer.